There's something no one teaches you as a child. Poverty doesn't always begin in your bank account. It begins in your mind, in what you tolerate, in what you repeat, and most of all, in what you justify. There are habits you repeat every single day, and you don't see them. You don't question them. You learned them without even noticing. And today, without knowing it, they're silently pulling you away from the life you were meant to live. They sabotage you in silence. They rob you of opportunities. They numb your ambition. And the worst part, you think it's the world's fault, when in reality, you've simply forgotten your power. Welcome to the Napoleon Hill Code, the channel where we don't come to entertain you. We're here to wake you up. Today we're going to talk about the 8 hidden habits that keep you poor, not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And most importantly, we'll show you how to break them, how to deactivate the programming that's kept you limited for far too long, and how to finally build the powerful identity that's been inside you all along. Because hear this loud and clear, no one is born poor. You're unknowingly trained to live in scarcity. And today, that training ends. If this video found you, it's not an accident. Maybe it's the sign you've been waiting for. Maybe it's the push you needed to stop surviving and start thriving. It doesn't matter how little you've made. It doesn't matter if you failed before. It doesn't matter if no one around you ever believed in you. The only thing that matters is that you're here. And if you're here, it's because something inside you is done settling. Listen to every word with an open heart. Question everything you've always accepted as normal. And if something makes you uncomfortable, don't dismiss it. Because what makes you uncomfortable transforms you. Today, with each habit we expose, you'll start to see clearly what you once justified. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why poverty isn't a punishment, it's a consequence. And most importantly, you'll learn how to change that consequence. With habits, with decisions, with character. Get ready. This is not just another video. This is a breaking point. Habit 1. Overspending and lack of strategy. They taught you how to make money, but not how to respect it. And that mistake is more expensive than any debt. The first habit that keeps you poor is this: spending more than you earn. And I'm not just talking about numbers. I'm talking about the consumer mindset, the habit of living on the edge, the silent trap of having empty pockets and a house full of things you don't need. You look at your account and ask, where did it all go? But the real question is, who was I when I made those decisions? Every expense is a declaration of identity. Every emotional purchase says, I don't know who I am, so I buy something to fill the void. And if you don't see it, you'll repeat it. You'll get paid on Friday and be broke by Monday. You'll justify rewards you haven't earned. You'll go into debt trying to impress people who won't be there when you can't even afford to eat. That's how 95% of people live, with credit cards that promise freedom, but are actually shackles with interest, with instant pleasures that rob them of the future, with a lifestyle that screams abundance, but hides anxiety disguised as normal. And the problem isn't that you lack money. The problem is you lack a strategy. You lack control. You lack a reason big enough to say, I don't need this right now. I'll wait until I'm ready. I'll deserve it. Because hear this clearly. He who lacks vision lives on impulse. And impulse is the worst financial advisor. Because we were programmed this way. We grew up watching adults live day to day. No one taught us how to build, only how to consume. They told us things like, enjoy it, life is short. You work to treat yourself. If you don't buy it now, it won't be there tomorrow. But here's what they didn't tell you. If you don't learn to wait, you'll be a slave to your emotions for life. If you don't respect small money, you'll never handle big money. Immediate pleasure is the greatest enemy of your future freedom. 1. Do a brutal audit of your finances. Track every expense, every subscription, every impulse buy. Because if you don't see it, your mind will justify it. 2. Start saving, even symbolically. Not for the amount, but for what it represents. Each time you save, your mind hears, "My future matters more than today's impulse." 3. Give every dollar a purpose. Every dollar that enters must have a destination. If you don't decide where it goes, your emotions will. 4th, block impulse access. Remove one-click buys. Freeze cards if needed. Not because you're weak, but because you're rebuilding. Every time you're about to spend on something unnecessary, ask, "Does this bring me closer to the man I want to be?" If the answer is no, don't buy it. Breathe. Be grateful. Move forward. Because financial control doesn't start at the bank, it starts with your character. With the ability to delay gratification to create a life that's truly yours. This is where your freedom begins. Not when you earn more. Not when you get a raise. But when you live below your means with intention, purpose, and the strength of someone who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. That man, the one who respects his money, his effort, his purpose, that man is no longer poor. Even if he doesn't have millions, he already has the most valuable thing of all, self-control. If this habit made you reflect, drop it in the comments. I no longer spend on impulse. I build my freedom and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. The next habits are even more invisible, but once you see them, you'll never live the same again. Habit 2. Procrastination. There's a trap that seems innocent, but destroys more dreams than failure ever could. Procrastination. You delay important decisions until tomorrow, but that tomorrow never comes. And without realizing it, weeks, months, even years go by, and your life hasn't changed. Not because you can't, but because you still haven't dared to decide. Let me tell you something no one dares to say boldly. Not acting is also a decision, and every time you don't choose, you're still choosing. You're choosing to stay the same. What are you procrastinating? You know it. That uncomfortable conversation, that change of environment, that savings plan, that business idea you've had for years, but never started. You tell yourself, it's not the right time yet. When I have more money? When I have more clarity? But the truth is, that moment won't come until you move. You're lying to yourself. You're numbing yourself. You're filling your day with urgent tasks to avoid making important decisions. Meanwhile, life goes on. Time passes. Your energy runs out. And the only thing that changes is your frustration level. Listen closely. Perfect preparation does not exist. The perfect moment will never come. And if you're waiting to feel ready, you'll die waiting. Why? Because inspiration doesn't come before action. Action comes first. Motivation follows. Real growth begins when you decide, even when afraid. When you say, I don't have all the answers, but I can't keep living like this. I have no guarantees, but I have direction. That kind of decision changes you, because it starts to give you identity. You're no longer just someone who thinks, reflects, and dreams. Now you're someone who acts. And when you act, even without having it all figured out, your mind begins to trust you. It starts to believe that this time, you're serious. And then, it activates. It gives you ideas. It gives you strength. It gives you focus. But if you keep procrastinating, you become slower. You become more insecure. You become dependent. And that's the real trap. You think you're being cautious, but you're actually avoiding your growth. How do you break this habit? 1. Identify one pending decision. Just one. Don't overwhelm yourself. Choose the one that's been haunting you for weeks or months, the one that you know could change everything, if you just dared. 2. Make that decision today. Don't wait for a sign. You are the sign. You are the moment. 3. Take action in the next 24 hours. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be real. Make the call. Open the file. Finish the process. Book the appointment. Do something that gets you out of stagnation. 4. Write it down. Yes, on paper. Because what you don't write doesn't exist. Write down your decision. Read it every day. Let it be your compass, your reminder that you are no longer the same. Because hear me clearly, the man who makes decisions becomes a leader, and the one who doesn't lives dragged by the decisions of others. Who do you want to be? You don't need certainty. You need character. You don't need guarantees. You need determination. Some men spend years wanting a new life, but they never choose it. They never claim it. They never activate it through one solid decision. And you can't afford to be one of them. Not after everything you've already learned. Not after everything you've already overcome. If this habit hit you hard, write it in the comments. I no longer wait. I choose to move forward. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This channel is for those ready to choose their destiny, even if they don't fully know how to get there yet. Because deciding is more powerful than knowing, and those who decide transform. Habit 3. Thinking small. There's something more dangerous than failure, and it's living your whole life without ever having truly tried. The third habit that keeps you poor isn't about what you do. It's about how you think. It's called thinking small. It doesn't mean you don't dream. It means your dreams have been shrunk by fear. You've settled for surviving, when deep down, in your soul, you know you were made for more. Thinking small sounds like this. At least I have a job. I'm not doing as bad as others. As long as I can cover the basics, I'm okay. It may sound humble, but it's not. It's fear in disguise. It's resignation masked as realism. It's a slow way of dying, with your eyes wide open. Most people don't live in financial poverty. They live in vision poverty. They wake up, go to work, pay bills, and repeat. Not because they can't do more, but because they no longer allow themselves to imagine more. And that's how ambition dies. That's how purpose withers. That's how a life that was never meant for you becomes normal. Where did you learn to think small? Maybe you heard it growing up. Don't get your hopes up. Don't aim too high. As long as you can survive, you're fine. And you repeated that, without ever questioning it. They told you dreaming big was arrogant, that it was dangerous, that it was for other people. But listen to me. There's nothing more respectful to your soul than thinking big. Thinking big isn't vanity. It's recognizing you were created on purpose. There's something you can do, create, teach, impact, that no one else on earth can do like you. But thinking small has serious consequences. You surround yourself with people who don't challenge you. You accept jobs you don't love. You make decisions from fear, not faith. And year after year, you feel like you're living less, even though you're still breathing. It's not because you're weak. It's because no one ever taught you to think differently. How do you break this habit? 1. Do a brutal inventory of your thoughts. Every time you say, "That's not for me," write it down. Then ask yourself, who taught me that? 2. Start writing big goals, ones that make you uncomfortable, that scare you a little, that make you say, I don't know how, but I want it, because that's what makes it worth it. 3. Surround yourself with expansive content, books, channels, voices that don't say, just survive, but say, grow, transcend, leave your mark. 4. Act like the man you want to become. Walk differently. Decide differently. Dress differently. Because identity is built through action, not affirmations. Listen carefully. Your life will never grow beyond the size of your thoughts. If you think scarcity, you'll attract problems. If you think limitation, you'll attract excuses. But if you think purpose, your soul ignites, your vision aligns, and God begins to open doors that were once closed because you weren't ready to see them. Reflect on this. What if I stop fearing greatness? What if I stop asking, who am I to dream that? And start asking, who am I not to? That changes everything. Napoleon Hill said it clearly. What the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But there's one condition. You must believe it before you see it. You must act as if it were inevitable, even if the world doesn't believe it yet, even if you still have doubts. Because that's where transformation begins. First in the invisible, then in the tangible. The world needs more men who think big, men who won't settle, who elevate their environment, who make the system uncomfortable, who live with purpose. And you can be one of them. But first, you must stop thinking small. If this hit you, write it in the comments. I no longer think small. My life will match the size of my vision. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Because here, we're not building egos. We're building men with vision. And vision is the doorway to all prosperity. Habit 4. Waiting for motivation to act. This habit seems harmless, but if you don't destroy it, you'll spend your life postponing your greatness. Habit number 4. Waiting to feel motivated before taking action. It's the most accepted lie among men who say they want to change their life, but never actually do. You wake up one day, inspired, full of energy, and you think, this time I'm going to do it. But the next day, you're tired. Your mind is foggy, so you do nothing. And just like that, your entire future depends on how you feel when you wake up. Listen to this truth. The man who only acts when he feels like it will never build anything great. Because motivation is unstable. It's emotional. Depends on the weather, your mood, the news, your surroundings. And you can't build your emotional, spiritual, or financial empire on something so unstable. True transformation doesn't belong to the most excited man. It belongs to the most disciplined, the one who does what needs to be done, even if he's afraid, even if he's tired, even if he doesn't see immediate results. That is the man who wins, because his character is stronger than his comfort. Here's the trap. They've sold you the idea that you need inspiration to begin, but that's false. Action comes before motivation. First you do it, then you feel it. Not the other way around. You want motivation to work out, but it's working out that will motivate you. You want inspiration to start a business, but it's starting that will light the fire. You want energy to make a change, but it's changing that will give you energy. How do you break this habit? 1. Eliminate the emotional option. Stop asking yourself, do I feel like it? Start asking, does this bring me closer to who I want to be? 2. Create rituals, not decisions. If every day you have to decide whether to do something, you will fail. Turn it into a non-negotiable routine, a commitment to yourself. 3. Start with one small but powerful action. Something that doesn't depend on how you feel. Something you can do even on your worst days. Maybe it's writing your goals. Maybe it's waking up 30 minutes earlier. Do it every day. No excuses. No negotiations. 4. Hold yourself accountable. End each day by asking, did I move closer to my vision, or did I betray it? That question, if asked with brutal honesty, can transform you more than 1,000 motivational speeches. Napoleon Hill said, "Discipline is the master key that opens every door to success." And he was right. Because when you're disciplined, you don't depend on your environment. You don't depend on emotion. You depend on your commitment. Look inside yourself and answer honestly. Are you waiting to feel ready? Are you waiting for the perfect Monday? The perfect month? The perfect year? If so, you're trapped. And deep down, you know it. What you have to do it now. With fear, with doubt, with tiredness. But do it anyway. Because each time you do, even with resistance, your mind receives a clear message. I'm in charge here. And that message is powerful, because it reconfigures your identity. Repeat this firmly. My discipline doesn't depend on how I feel. It depends on who I choose to be. That's the secret. Identity is built through sustained action, not fleeting intention. And if you want a stable, prosperous, powerful life, you have to stop depending on feeling like it. You must become someone who acts, even when he feels nothing. That man is dangerous, because he doesn't stop. He doesn't get distracted. He doesn't break. If this habit was holding you back, write it in the comments. My discipline doesn't depend on my emotions. I am action, because when you repeat a powerful truth, your mind starts to believe it. And once it believes it, your body will follow. Habit 5. Your environment. Sometimes it's not your effort that's sabotaging you. It's your environment. And you don't even notice, because you've grown used to it. The 5th habit that keeps you poor, even if you work hard, even if you have dreams, even if you have discipline, is this: surrounding yourself with people who don't push you to grow, people who slow you down, who mock your vision, who normalize mediocrity, who applaud you when you complain, but criticize you when you improve. Who surrounds you today? Do they inspire you or drain you? Do they lift you or keep you stuck? Do they celebrate your growth or minimize it? Because let me tell you something very clearly. The wrong environment is a guaranteed path to failure, not because they're bad people, but because their energy, their mindset, their vibration shape your mind without you noticing. What you tolerate every day eventually becomes your standard of living. Listen to this truth with your soul. Your environment has more power than your intention. You may have the strongest will in the world, but if you're surrounded by complaining, scarcity, cynicism, and fear, sooner or later, your vision becomes contaminated. Because we are emotional beings. We absorb attitudes. We imitate behavior. We shrink our goals to avoid making others uncomfortable. And that slowly kills your spirit. Look at the symptoms. You no longer talk about your goals because they wouldn't understand. You stop sharing your ideas, afraid they'll laugh at you. You stick to what's safe, so you won't lose your place in the group. And little by little, you stop growing just to keep your belonging. But that belonging is costing you your purpose. How do you break this habit? 1. Do a brutal relationship audit. Write down who you talk to the most during the week. Then ask yourself, does this person push me toward my best version or numb me? 2. Reduce exposure to what limits you. You don't need to cut people out with hate. But you do need to protect your energy like it's gold. Not everyone who loves you is good for you. 3. Surround yourself with ideas bigger than your fears. If you don't have people around you who lift you up, then look for books, videos, podcasts, and places where vision is the norm, not the exception. 4. Endure the discomfort of being alone for a while. Yes, it will hurt. You'll feel like you don't fit anywhere. But that's because you're changing frequencies. You're leaving the noise to build direction. Napoleon Hill put it this way: you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And he wasn't just talking financially. He meant mindset, conversation, habits, focus. If you're surrounded by victims, you'll start thinking like one. If you're surrounded by leaders, you'll eventually start acting like one. And you get to choose what side you're on. You don't need approval. You need direction. You don't need external validation. You need inner strength. And if today you're in an environment that doesn't believe in growth, don't waste energy trying to convince them. Let your transformation become your proof. Let your life speak. Let your results be impossible to ignore. But to do that, you first need to leave the circle that's keeping you small. Your mind is fertile soil, and everything that enters through your eyes and ears is a seed. Are you planting vision or planting fear? Are you feeding your faith or your excuses? Because if you don't control your environment will end up controlling you. And the most tragic part? You won't even notice. One day, you'll just wake up and realize you no longer dream. You no longer fight. You no longer burn with passion. And that is the beginning of the end. Start today. Change your conversations. Change your influences. Change your spaces. Change everything, if that's what it takes to start hearing yourself again. Because there is no success more painful than the kind achieved surrounded by people who don't value it. And there's no poverty more cruel than that of a man who betrayed himself just to fit in. If this habit hit you hard, write in the comments, "I'd rather walk alone than be surrounded by what limits me." That phrase might be the spark that ignites your new circle. A place where growth isn't rare, it's the rule. Habit 6, lack of financial vision. It doesn't matter how hard you work, how many hours you put in, how good you are at what you do. If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up anywhere but where you want to be. The 6th habit that keeps you poor is simple, but devastating. Not having a clear financial vision. You live putting out fires, chasing after bills, reacting to the month, but never building the year. Let alone your legacy. And not because you lack capacity, but because you've never sat down in silence to ask yourself, what do I really want to achieve with my money? What am I really working for? What amount would bring me peace? And why? Most people don't have goals. They have obligations, pressure, anxiety, but not vision. What happens when you don't have a financial vision? Every dollar that enters leaves with no direction. Every opportunity looks good, even if it leads nowhere. You invest in what sounds nice, not in what actually builds. And worst of all, you work like a slave to your present, but never like an architect of your future. Why don't you have a clear vision? Because you were taught to survive, to see what happens, to do what you can with what you've got. And so the years passed, and you're still spinning in circles. But you weren't born for that. You weren't born to repeat cycles. You were born to break them. Napoleon Hill made it clear. Riches begin with a definite goal, a real goal, written, measurable, purposeful, one that gets you out of bed, one that makes you uncomfortable, one that reminds you that you're alive and that you were made for more. How do you break this habit? 1. Define a specific financial goal. Don't say, "I want more money." Say, "I want to earn $5,000 per month within 12 months through specific method." 2. Tie your goal to a bigger purpose, It's not just about the money. It's about freedom. It's about the example you give your child, the house you'll gift your mother, the legacy you'll leave behind. 3. Write that goal every day, even if it feels repetitive, even if you don't yet know how to achieve it. Because by repeating it, your mind starts filtering the world through that goal, and that's what creates focus. 4. Build a basic monthly plan. You don't need 50 steps, just one. What can I do this month to get closer to that vision? A life without vision is like a building with no blueprint. It looks busy. It looks under construction. But nothing truly progresses. And that wears you down. It drains you. It robs you of your faith. Not because you lack potential, but because you lack a North Star. But when you have a clear goal, everything changes. You say no with more strength. You say yes with more precision. You wake up with purpose. And every dollar you earn becomes a seed. You no longer spend on impulse. Now you build with direction. Your environment adjusts. Your mind sharpens. Your character strengthens. Because you're no longer working out of need. You're building out of vision. Write your goal. Read it out loud each morning. Visualize it. Feel it. Make that goal your silent prayer, your spiritual declaration, your personal promise that you're no longer willing to break. Because money without vision only fills voids. But money with vision transforms lives. Because a man with financial vision is a dangerous man. A man who doesn't get distracted, who doesn't sell himself for crumbs, who doesn't wait for miracles, because he becomes one. Habit 7. Stopping your growth and not investing in yourself. The world is changing every day. It evolves. It moves forward. It reinvents itself. But you, are you still thinking the same way you did 5 years ago? The 7th habit that keeps you poor, even if you earn money, even if you have good intentions, even if you try your best, is this: stopping your learning and not investing in yourself. Listen carefully. What doesn't expand gets stuck, and what gets stuck starts to rot. There are men who stopped growing years ago but don't realize it, because they still feel busy. They go to work. They fulfill obligations. They pay bills. But their mind is asleep. Their learning is dead. Their vision is in a coma. When was the last time you learned something that challenged you? Something that made you feel ignorant, uncomfortable, but alive? Because that is growth. But most avoid it. Because growing hurts. Questioning disturbs. Unlearning exhausts. So they stay in what they already know. And what they know no longer serves them. The most dangerous thought of all: I'm too old for that. I've already done enough learning. With what I know, I'll manage. Number: you won't. Because if it were enough, you wouldn't feel frustrated. You wouldn't feel limited. You wouldn't be barely surviving. And the saddest part? That limitation isn't even real. It's mental. It's learned. And what's learned can be unlearned. Napoleon Hill said, "No man can become successful without being willing to keep learning constantly." And it's true, because knowledge is power, but not power to dominate others. Power to dominate yourself, to make better decisions, to break patterns, to multiply results. What happens when you stop learning? Your decisions repeat. Your mistakes repeat. Opportunities become invisible. And your frustration grows, even if you don't know why. Worst of all, you start depending on others, on a boss, on a system, on some luck that never arrives. Because you yourself shut the valve on your growth. How do you break this habit? 1. Make learning a daily discipline. just 15 minutes a day. An audiobook on your commute. A purposeful video instead of entertainment. It's small, but it changes everything. 2. Invest in yourself, even symbolically. A course, a book, a mentorship. Because every dollar you invest in your mind comes back multiplied in opportunities. 3. Ask yourself this every night. What did I learn today that makes me wiser than I was yesterday? If the answer is nothing, then tomorrow must be different. 4. Learn with intention. Don't learn everything. Learn what brings you closer to your vision. Finance, communication, leadership, health, business. Learn what makes you self-sufficient. Because a man who trains himself every day is a man that no one can stop. It doesn't matter how many times he's failed. It doesn't matter if he started late. Doesn't matter if he came from the bottom. The one who learns evolves, and the one who evolves wins over the one who only repeats. And it's not about studying for the sake of it. It's about becoming an expert in yourself, understanding your mind, your habits, your fears, your strengths. Because when you truly know yourself, no one can manipulate you. No one can stop you. No one can define who you are. Do you know what's truly expensive? Not knowing how to sell, not knowing how to communicate, not understanding your money, not managing your energy. That costs you years, opportunities, freedom. And if you knew what you're missing by not learning, you'd make studying your new religion. So from now on, stop waiting for others to give you answers. Go find them. Read them. Study them. Apply them. Because the difference between the man who prospers and the man who merely survives is not luck. It's in the information one has, and the other ignores. And that difference is in your hands. Habit 8. Identifying with scarcity. You can change your habits. You can increase your income. You can even surround yourself with successful people. But if deep down, you still believe you don't deserve abundance, you'll sabotage it all. The 8th habit that keeps you poor isn't external. You can't see it. You can't hear it. But you feel it. It's the silent belief that scarcity is part of who you are. You don't say, "I'm poor," out loud, but you say it with your choices, with your posture, with your negotiations, with the way you receive compliments, with the way you react when money comes into your life. Many say they want to prosper, but they don't know how to receive. They feel uncomfortable earning more than those around them. They feel guilty when they succeed, where others failed. They feel like it's suspicious to feel good for too long. And that's no coincidence. It's an emotional root, a subconscious program that taught you that scarcity equals safety, that settling equals virtue, that dreaming big equals sin. Hear this clearly. The mind always returns to what it believes is normal. If scarcity feels normal inside you, you'll destroy any opportunity that smells like abundance. Not because you're bad, but because your subconscious is trying to protect you from a level of life it doesn't recognize as yours. That's why you lose clients. That's why you overspend. That's why you can't keep healthy relationships. That's why you feel like something bad is coming when everything finally starts going right. It's not bad luck. It's a poorly built identity. Napoleon Hill taught, poverty is not a destiny, it's a mentality. And that mentality is formed in childhood, in what you saw, what you heard, what you believed about yourself, before you even had the ability to question it. But today, you're no longer that child. Today, you can break that identity and build a new one. How do you break this habit? 1. Make a radical internal declaration. Look in the mirror and say, I am not scarcity. I am expansion. I am purpose. I am blessing too. Stop repeating victim stories. Every time you say, things always go wrong for me, I never catch a break. I wasn't born for this. You are reinforcing the mold that keeps you small. Third act as if you were already a prosperous man. Decide with faith. Walk with intention. Speak with power. Because what you do shapes what you believe. And what you believe becomes who you are. If you change your identity, everything else aligns. Not because it's magic, but because everything in your life adjusts to match who you believe you are. And if today you decide that you are no longer that limited man, the universe has no choice but to respond, because you no longer vibrate the same. You no longer think the same. You no longer accept what you once tolerated. Repeat it every morning, until you believe it, until you live it, until your entire environment has no choice but to adapt to your new identity. Now you know. It wasn't the government. It wasn't your boss. It wasn't your city. It was you repeating habits that no longer represent who you are. But it's also you who can break them starting today. Because poverty is not your inheritance. Your inheritance is greatness, vision, abundance in mind, soul, and spirit. And if you made it this far, it's because you're no longer willing to live the same way. Because something inside you has already awakened. This wasn't just a video, it was a mirror. And maybe it was the breaking point you've been waiting for. If you felt that, don't ignore it. You're ready for more. But this path isn't meant to be walked alone. That's why this community exists. The Napoleon Hill Code isn't just a channel. It's a brotherhood, a place where men and women like you decide to stop surviving and start prospering with purpose. And if you feel like this message is part of your new chapter, consider joining the channel memberships. There, we share exclusive content, trainings, books, and tools for those who are done with motivation and ready for real transformation. Don't leave without applying this, because knowing it won't change your life. Using it will. See you in the next step. See you on the other side of your limits. See you in your new story.